Hey everybody, it's Father Edward Looney coming at you again with another interview about television and film. These are interviews that I thoroughly enjoy, and I love being able to watch some of the shows and movies that are coming out. And I'm becoming more and more familiar with the Great American Pure Flix channel and streaming software, I mean. And so this show we're going to talk about today is actually on that platform. You can watch it, and we'll talk a little bit more about that today. So I'm joined with Dan Merchant today, and he is the Emmy Award-winning television writer, producer, and he's the director of this show on Great American Family Pure Flix, Going Home. And it's a very interesting show. I'm excited to talk to him about it today. So thanks so much, Dan, for joining me.
Father Looney, thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, so Going Home, actually, I happened upon it by accident the other day when I was on PureFlix. In another interview I did, I told people that I have a accidental subscription to PureFlix because what ended up happening was, I wanted to watch a movie that someone I knew was in, and so I did the little free trial. I didn't cancel it, and now I have a year subscription. So that's
I
what
think
happened.
that's how it's supposed to work. Well done.
Yeah, so I was on the platform because I just interviewed someone from a show called Vindication, also 3 seasons, I believe, on Great American Family Pure Flix. And so when I was on there watching that show, I saw Going Home. It was like recommended, and I thought, oh, I'd like to read watch that, and then a week later, then a news release came out about Going Home and an invitation for me to see season two. Not all of it's released yet, so yeah. So it was just kind of funny how it all kind of fell into place and came together for us to talk today about this show Going Home, which is a show about hospice and about these nurses who are working at an institution. They're walking, journeying with people as they're going home, as they're going home to eternity, to be with the Lord. So tell me a little bit. You're the writer, creator, director of the show. So where did the inspiration come from?
Uh, I would say Going Home is a show that explores the hope and the beauty hidden in the difficult time for many of end of life care and the transition to the next world. Um, the idea just sort of landed in my head one day, probably in the midst of the pandemic. It was probably for a good reason. And then to develop the show out with my wife, Kara Merchant, who's one of the writers on the show. And then in the writer's room with Kara and Matt Michelatos, we really kind of developed the show and did some research to kind of compare our own personal experiences with hospice against the experiences of those who do the work. And we had our ideas and our own experiences really affirmed by these very positive, very moving experiences that we had with hospice nurses, and really had a chance to go deeper into these stories about compassion and connection and forgiveness and reconciliation and kind of all of these things that are natural to this end of life journey. And what we learned from the hospice nurses, just to kind of frame it a little bit, which was interesting, is that they don't see death as the opposite of life. So most medical dramas on TV, that is, give me 10 cc's of morphine, stat. Oh, we've lost the patient. Oh no. Well, this show is, we're not saving any patients. It's not about that. It's about these things that we can all relate to, as we're all going to face death. We've all faced it with loved ones. And it's amazing what a uniter that common human experience is. And really, that's the heart of Going Home, is let's explore that difficult, beautiful space, if we let it. And certainly the hospice nurses in our show show you a lot of things about how to deal with the difficulties of losing loved ones. And also, I think that's interesting. In our culture, we're not used to talking about death. We don't want to. We don't like to. And I feel like what we've discovered in writing the show is one of the reasons is because that begs the questions about how are we living? Where are we with our relationships? Is our side of the street straight? Are we doing the things that we're supposed to be doing while we're here in this world? And those are really hard questions. And
Yeah,
so if we can ignore the death, if we can ignore the death one, maybe we can ignore some of these other things too. And that's the dramatic beauty of a show like Going Home. It's an entertaining TV show, but we get to deal with all of that stuff. And I think that's why it's been such a relatable show, and really people have really connected to those themes of grace and redemption and forgiveness, and acknowledging this beautiful mess that we get to live every day.
Yeah, and so I'm a priest, so I work in ministry. I see death a lot. I'm called in when someone is, close to death. So hospice is often calling me, or someone needs to be anointed, or they want to be prayed with, or they want you to come after someone has died. So it is something that I'm very familiar with, and I've seen the great value of hospice. I think in society we kind of don't really understand it, and a lot of times today a hospice, maybe someone gets put on it for the last 3 hours of their life, whereas hospice is meant to be for several weeks, for months. Like it's supposed to be this palliative care, just helping these people at the end of their life manage pain, comfort, or their comfort measures, etc. And so sometimes even being on hospice will prolong your life because you're not going into the hospitals as frequently and such. There's this phenomenal book I read one time by Dr. Ira Bayek. It was called The Best Care Possible, talking about hospice care and such. And that was very eye-opening. And I'm sure, as I saw in your show, kind of the different things you bring out, like there was one episode where, for example, the person says, hearing is the last thing to go. Well, that's something we know, that people, as they're passing, you can give your final goodbye. They'll hear that, and there is comfort in order to say that farewell and such. And so the show does a wonderful job, I think, just showing kind of that transition, that moment where an individual who is in the hospice in the show Going Home, that like here they are, they're active, they're talking. There was one episode where it was a podcast host, and so they're doing a show, they're doing the recording, and then here it is a little bit later, and now they're leaving this world. The show is ending, their life is ending, and their husband finishes the episode and gives a reflection. So yeah, it's just I think there's a great value in this show. So have you heard from other people, maybe someone out there has a loved one who is in a hospice, and maybe they found your show like something that helped them in that process of dealing with what they were going through? Have you heard from viewers just about
Yeah.
kind of the interaction of the show in their own life?
No, no, that's a strong. We've had a strong response on that very topic of people who found the show helpful, and who have gone through it or are looking or kind of maybe standing on the doorstep of it and didn't, as you described, didn't know that much about a hospice. And that was the experience for my wife and I, with loved ones. We both lost parents. Her father, my mother, a little bit young, and then grandparents. We had lots of experience with hospice with them. And when we got together to work on this show, we started comparing notes, and we noticed that, wow, how did the hospice nurses always know the right thing to say? And you think about, well, the reps they have in dealing with this difficult space that we've dealt with a few times, but with years and years and years in between. And, maybe when I lost my grandparents, I was barely 20. So didn't really clock it the way it did when I lost my mom, 20 years later. And so it's very interesting. But those hospice nurses, they have that experience. And as we describe in the show, the character played by Cynthia Geary named Charlie, the head nurse, it's a calling for her. And I feel like the people who end up in hospice care, that's a special breed of person. It's not easy. Not everyone is cut out for that. And so the people that have that understanding, that nurturing ability, and as we describe and dramatize in Going Home, the ability to be present. And that's what the hospice nurses that we interviewed when we did our research said. It's like, oh no, being present is the key. Because when you're being present, it's not about you. You're not thinking about what the next thing you're going to say. You're just there to observe and meet the needs, whatever they might be, of the people in the room. And as you see demonstrated in the show, in Going Home, sometimes it's not the person in the bed about to leave the world who needs the hospice care.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the family members who are having a hard time letting go. Sometimes it's the family members who, ooh, I'm, no, I haven't apologized for a thing I need to apologize for. I haven't confronted an issue that I've put off all these years. And I think that's the other helpful thing we've heard from viewers about is that, oh, I don't have to wait to be on my deathbed to go, I need to take care of this problem in my life. I need to confront this individual. I need to forgive this individual. I need to ask for their forgiveness, whatever it might be, because we've all got those complicated, messy things. We've all made mistakes. We've all hurt people we care about. What do you do about it? And, there's lots of people we've heard from where it's, I'm characterizing now, but it's like, oh, I haven't talked to my sister in 3 years. I can't even remember why we're fighting. This show makes me want to reach out to her because I don't want to lose these years. I don't want to wait to the end of my life to have that reconciliation. And so those are the kind of conversations that are about life, not about death, that a show like Going Home kind of provokes and leads the audience towards. And I'm really proud of that, and I'm really grateful that the show's entertaining and helpful to an audience.
Yeah, you mentioned that this was a calling for one of the main nurses in the show, who we kind
Yeah,
of follow, and she, trains the younger nurse, and you kind of see that play out. And so, the show, the intro is this lady running, so it's kind of probably running exercise is her way of processing because obviously
that's good.
she needs to deal with what she sees with every single day, and then but
No,
the show,
that's
yeah.
Well, let me come up on the running thing. No, you caught that exactly right. In the opening titles that you see every week on the show, Cynthia Geary's character, who your audience will recognize from Northern Exposure. She was an Emmy-nominated actor on the big CBS hit Northern Exposure in the '90s, which incidentally is now just available after 30 years on Amazon Prime. To
Oh,
give
wow.
them a plug. So if you knew Cynthia from those days, you get to see her in her old show, and now on Going Home, it's her new show is out too. So I love the serendipity of that timing. But yeah, to your point, you see Cynthia running through the city, and she's running to work. And then through most of the episodes, you see her get on her running clothes in the locker room and run home. And so that is a process, a transition, a very meditative, very spiritual exercise for her. It's one of the ways she processes and doesn't kind of take on, the grief. And that's an interesting thing that the hospice nurses have specific practices to help, because you would naturally think, I would think, oh wow, it must be hard to be around death every day.
Hmm.
Well, they have ways to deal with that. And you see at the end of every episode, you haven't got to this yet, but the end of every episode, there's a passages ceremony where the loved one who has passed on is taken out through a chapel, and the family members, if there are any present, will sit for a moment of reflection, and the staff members do as well. And so that's an actual practice that I've seen in hospice care, where those who tended to that person while they were here get to say a goodbye or get to acknowledge their passing. And it's sort of, you get to close the loop on that, and your brain knows what to do. Your brain doesn't expect to see them the next day because you've said goodbye, and they have this prayerful reflection, and then that person, is taken out by the mortuary team. And I thought, wow, somebody's thought this through, so that way it's taken care of the mental, spiritual health, emotional health of the hospice nurses as well as the family.
Yeah, and what I like too is that, and as these episodes close, so you have her running at the very beginning and the intro, and then as they close, it's she's praying, and she offers a prayer to God, praying for that family who's grieving, and so there's that faith component, and I guess you shouldn't be surprised with a show that's on Pure Flix, Great American Pure Flix, that would be an element because faith and faith-based shows and films are a priority there. So what is the interplay of faith in this show then, that you've written?
Well, thanks for that great question. We consider the show a mainstream show. It's a medical drama. It's an entertainment show, and like I joked before, it's a medical drama that's not trying to save the patient. We're into deeper, harder things in a way to dramatize. Um, Charlie is a character motivated by her faith. She is a person of faith. Not everybody in the show is. She is. And this expression where she sits and talks to the sunset is actually, this beautiful expression of how she communes with God. That's absolutely, what that is. And my wife Kara kind of helped refine this particular element in the show because we used to joke about how everybody wants to be Jesus's best friend, but nobody talks to him as if he were their friend.
Mm.
It's all, in my brain, I've still got all the Monty Python stuff in my brain. Oh Lord, you're so huge. We know you're so big and impressive, and we're just little peons down. Well, that's not how Charlie talks. Charlie talks like, Lord, wow, that was a tough one today. Thanks for walking with me. And that was a beautiful detail that Kara really helped us refine. And she writes many of those little prayer sequences where I think they're beautiful demonstrations of what an actual relationship with God looks like, and can look like, and that's available to us. And I think what's beautiful too about it's Cynthia's work in those scenes, it's heartfelt. She's honest. She cops to her mistake. She recognizes and is grateful for things that where she saw God move that day. But it's not done in a preachy way, and it's not done in a way that this is the right way, this is how you have to be. And there's nothing prescriptive about it, which I think is part of what makes the show mainstream, honestly, is that, 7 out of 10 people in America have some version of a Judeo Christian faith. That's a lot of people. And a lot of people can relate to that. And a lot of people struggle with, well, how do I live out this faith in this modern world? I don't get it. What am I supposed to do this or supposed to do that? And it can be it's personal, and it can be simple and beautiful and potent the way Charlie demonstrates it. And I love those simple depictions because it's an invitation to people to think about, well, if I believe this stuff, how do I want to live it out today? And I think that's a thing everybody's thinking about, and that's the beauty of an entertainment show. You approach it, you can approach it from a safe distance, and then you can think about, well, how would I have done that? Or I like how she does it, compare that against how I pray or don't pray or whatever. So I don't know, I think that's really fun, and I think it's again, because lots of people, I mean, everybody believes something, whether you choose not to believe or to believe, everybody's made that decision and gone through that thought process. So I feel like Going Home is a show that respects people, and that respects that they have belief, regardless of what they are. And then these things that bring us together of human connection and compassion, can be uplifting, and there's grace can be found in these unlikely places that we don't want to look. This end of life, this death, we don't want to look at that, but there's treasure there if we're willing and able.
We've thrown out that word mainstream a few times. So, in terms of being a television series and show, what are some of the mainstream shows that you would maybe put this side by side with?
It's interesting. I'll tell you some of the few that reviewers have said, oh, this reminds me of, and people have said, This Is Us. People had said Providence or Saint Elsewhere, going back a few years, that are like really creative, really interesting, existential, looks where you're in this medical vein. A show called Providence was one that came up, medical drama again. So those are a few that this week, people that we've been interviewed by have gone, oh, this kind of reminds me of. And I think what they're touching on are the things that we all have in common, are the most important things, and we're telling stories about those things. There's nothing more relatable than this death thing that we all have in common, because it's coming for us all at some point. And so once you can accept, oh my gosh, we all have that in common, then it's pretty easy to go one more step and go, yeah, we kind of have most everything else in common too, any of the fundamental important things. And obviously in the mainstream, the culture, the news cycles, all this, there's a whole lot of emphasis on the things that we don't have in common. And I argue that's pretty dishonest, because the things that we don't have in common are not fundamental. We all love our families. We all come from somewhere, and we're going to some other place that we don't fully understand. And that's why I'm so proud of Going Home. Is it's a show about hope. It's a show about human connection. It's a show about compassion and love, and those are things that everybody wants.
So there was a season 1 and now there's a season 2 episodes coming out. What's the difference or what's the development from season 1 to season 2 that a viewer might notice?
Nice. No, that's a great question, Ed. I feel like season two, we in the writers' room were a bit more conscious of really going deeper into the personal lives of the characters. We get out of the Sunset House a little more. We follow uh, uh, Cynthia Geary's character Charlie and Cozy Zulsdorf's character Janie in their personal lives a little bit more. They have romantic interests that emerge and create interesting and fun complications. Tamara and Scott, who also work on the staff there, their characters also have little through lines that let us get to know them a little bit better. I'd say that the show is a little funnier. That we were comfortable leaning into kind of the humor of the human foibles and the idiosyncrasies we have, and I think it's also maybe paced a little faster. We wanted it to be a little faster, more shorter scenes this year, and I think all those things contribute to and complement, the heavier, more beautiful scenes where we are dealing with the hardest stuff, and you can kind of sit through every episode and go, oh, here's the payoff of that hard thing or that beautiful thing. And but I feel like, again, it's an entertaining TV show, and I feel like the humor and the soapy aspects of getting to know the characters a little bit deeper help really complement the deeper emotional truths that Going Home explores.
Do you expect there'll be a season 3?
We sure hope so. We've started kicking around the ideas and things like that. Like you said, we're about halfway through dropping new episodes on Great American Pure Flix. I think pureflix.com, and we're really happy with we're getting great support from the Pure Flix team with promotion and getting the word out about the show. And Bill Abbott, who runs Great American Pure Flix now, came over from Hallmark, so he's a guy who knows how to connect to the things that we are all in love with, and sort of the Hallmark claim to fame of the Christmas movies. Talk about hitting a universal theme, and we feel like Going Home is in that family of things. We feel like tonally it's a little more mainstream, and it's a little more authentic. But what Bill did and is doing with Great American Pure Flix is he's connecting to people. He's giving people what they want, and I feel like a show like Going Home, with its honest, authentic approach that we don't hide from and we don't shy away from, these conversations that we need to have in our culture. That's a great tribute to Great American, that they've given us such a featured spot on their platform, and set me up to talk with people like you, and Cynthia Geary and Cozy Zulsdorf are out talking about the show too, and that's really an honor to the effort that we've made to create a quality show for Great American Pure Flix.
What do you say to the person that says, I already subscribed to Netflix and Hulu and Max and Paramount Plus, and I wanted to watch that playoff game, so now I have Peacock? Like they're just
I
thinking
know.
this is another streaming platform I'd have to subscribe to. What do you say to them? How do you convince them it's worth it?
Well, I think what's the biggest differentiator is that there's different kinds of content offered. You won't find Going Home or anything remotely close to it on Netflix. I mean, how do you beat Netflix for raw entertainment and just sheer volume of entertainment? And I guess we're saying with Going Home, it's like it's entertainment, but it's edifying entertainment. And I think that would be the argument, that it's like, if you want something, here's the other thing too. Going Home is a 12 and up show. This is a show for the whole family. Will a 12-year-old be bored? Maybe, maybe not. But I'll bet you your 12-year-old has questions about where grandma went when she passed that are hard to have. And this show might help you with those conversations, or might just help take some of the stigma or fear of death. And that's the beautiful thing with Going Home and having these conversations about end of life, is that it's not a thing to be feared, and to understand that it's just part of the journey of life really does help me. I'll speak for myself, help me focus how I'm living my life. The choices I make, are different now because of how I'm thinking about this. The information that we researched and studied around going home, and I got to mention a storyline that you probably noticed in season 2. Another thing that's different is the grief share meetings that our main characters go to. So Charlie takes a main character who lost his wife in season 1 to Grief Share in season 2. And Grief Share is a real organization, griefshare.org or .com, .org, I think. And they provide this beautiful process, where you can move through your grief in a way that's affirming, and it's organized in a way, and it's organized in a simple way, as in however you're doing it is okay. If you're crying all day today, that's okay. If you haven't cried in a month, that's okay. Here's the things that you need to think about and kind of work through, and to give you a weekly group setting as well, to hear other people's stories and realize you're not alone, and it's a thing people are going through. I mean, you probably have grief groups of some sort in your line of work, and this particular organization, Grief Share, has really put the time in, and thousands and thousands and thousands of folks through the years have benefited from this. And I did too. After my father passed, during the filming of Going Home season 1, I attended a Grief Share group and got all the materials, and it was really affirming. It was a really helpful thing, and it was important to me to be able to depict in season 2 of Going Home, here kind of on the architectural level, if you will, is another important difference. Is in hospice, it's a slow train coming. In the grief share groups, it's people who've suffered loss tragically, suddenly, through accidents and overdoses and that sort of thing. And that's a different kind of grief, because you don't get the chance to, gosh, I should have apologized. I wish I hadn't said this. Boom, they're gone. That's a different flavor of pain and a different flavor of grief. And that's what grief share can help address. So, and that was a component to the show that we didn't have in season 1 that I hope is meaningful. And we've heard it is, to people who can watch it demonstrated and go, oh, a grief share group. Oh, that's not a scary thing to go to. This could be helpful. I'm hurting, I'm alone, and I miss that loved one so much. I don't know what to do with all these feelings and all this pain. And grief share kind of helps you move through that difficult space, and you don't have to do it alone. And that's, again, another really potent thing. It's great drama. It's great, it's great entertainment, but it's also, I think, helpful for people to approach it like they've meant to go to a meeting, but they're scared to. Well, now they get to watch a few of them in these episodes and go, oh, I kind of see that, or oh, that story kind of relates to my story. And I don't know, I just hope that that's affirming and meaningful and helpful ultimately.
Yeah. Are there any other projects, shows, movies you're working on that we should look out for maybe in 2024?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I hope there's a season 3 of Going Home, so you'll be sure to hear about that. I did a show last year called Live and Local that's also on Great American Pure Flix. That's a fun, it's kind of a very different sort of show. It's a fun behind the scenes look at a morning radio show, Christian radio station called K-Hug, and it stars Dave Coulier from Full House. So he's like the curmudgeon-y morning DJ who's been there forever at this tiny little AM station, or FM station, tiny little FM station, and a great actor named Emily Pendergrast, who's in the Los Angeles comedy troupe The Groundlings. You would have seen her on Veep on HBO. She plays his morning co-host, and they are great together. They're really funny. It's kind of it's almost we worked so hard to make it look like a real radio show that I think some people got confused going, what station is this? And it's like, because Dave Coulier is behind a real board talking into the right mics, and he has to run the show. So about half the show is live on the air, and then about half the show is behind the scenes when they're playing a record or a commercial is playing. And we had to create all these fake commercials to play in the background, and we had to go, well, who's advertising on local radio anymore? Well, it's going to be Martha's Yarn Shop. We make up all this stuff. The other thing that's fun about Live and Local, which again you can watch on PureFlix after going home, is we have real guests zoom in to this fake radio show. So we have like Dallas Jenkins, the creator of The Chosen, is an
Wow.
actual guest with our fake radio show hosts, and he's great, great interview. And Leanne Morgan, a wonderful clean comic, who's just outrageously funny from deep in the mountain, the Appalachians in Tennessee. She comes on and is a delight. And so we've got guest stars that pop in for these interviews, just like you would do on a morning radio show. Like I said, fake show, real guests. So there's that right now. Live and Local is on PureFlix right now, and I'm developing another show with Dave Coulier called Dr. Dave, and it's basically sort of Patch Adams meets Doogie Howser. He's a pediatrician, middle-aged pediatrician who, in his youth, was a doctor on a network TV drama, and that's where he got his love of medicine, was pretending to be a teenage prodigy doctor, and then he grows up to become a real one. And it's funny how the TV show doctor situations of his youth inform his real life practice at the Detroit Mercy Hospital. So Dr. Dave is another thing that we're working on and excited about. And he was a super fun guy to work with. And so that was really nice. We were able to come up with another idea to do. And we may do another season of Live and Local as well, which was a total blast.
Yeah, that show sounds great. I love radio and I love television. I was a co-host on a radio show for a year or so. I've done a lot of live television interviews and such. So I just love any show that incorporates television and radio. And so that
Ah,
one sounds like a riot, and I look forward to watching that. So I will
thank
be
you.
tuning in.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, last thing I want to say about going home that people might be surprised by is, again, it's really great acting talent taking on these really deep, beautiful human scenes. You made a reference earlier to the podcaster and her husband. Well, the podcaster is Gloria Rubin, who won Emmys on ER back in the day. So the audience is going to go, "Oh my gosh, Gloria Rubin." The guy who plays her husband, George Newbern, you'll recognize from Father of the Bride with Steve Martin back in the day. He's the groom and Father of the Bride and has been on a million TV shows since. So you get that level of veteran talent, and actors love to act and they love powerful scenes that reveal the humanity and their life experience. And so, we work, Kara and I particularly, and Matt, who writes with us, work really hard to get the scripts right and to get them to be realistic and not too over the top and not sentimental and all that. And then to have these level of actors, Cynthia Geary, Cozy Zulsdorf, Karen Allen from the Indiana Jones movies plays Charlie's mom in episode 6, the season finale of this season. I mean, Karen Allen, Mel Harris from 30 something, that you would recognize, and was Emmy nominated, Golden Globe nominated, through that show. So these are wonderful actors with great experience, and they said yes because they were interested in portraying this material. And you'll be surprised how potent it is, and it just matters so much to have this great, really high level of talent carrying out these difficult scenes. And it's a moving show. It's a beautiful show.
Well, this is Going Home, we've been talking about, and um, I've been talking with Dan Merchant. And so this has been a great conversation. I think Great American Pure Flix, something some people should subscribe to. They can watch this show, Going Home. They can watch Live and Local, which I'm going to look up tonight for sure. And thanks so much, Dan, for your time today.
No, my pleasure. And I loved your anecdote about the accidental free trial. It's like, that's what the free trials are for. Go to pureflix.com, try the 7 days free, go find Going Home, go watch Live and Local, and you'll just see that that's entertainment that's not offered anyplace else. And that's worth the click.
Well, very good. Well, thanks so much again. I appreciate you and the good work you're doing, and I'll look for the other shows you talked about to come.
Great. Thank you so much, Father Looney. It's great to visit with you, and thanks for having me.